Welcome to Sleepy Story Facts, and to this gentle nighttime story designed to help you drift into deep, restful sleep. Tonight is an invitation to slow everything down, to let the noise of the day fall away, and to soften into a quieter, kinder rhythm wherever you are listening from. This is your space to settle in, to breathe more slowly, and to let your thoughts move like clouds across a calm evening sky. As you rest, this bedtime story will stay close to home. Here on the planet beneath your feet, Earth, familiar and ordinary at first glance, is full of mysteries that feel almost otherworldly once you pause long enough to notice them. There are seas that glow softly at night, creatures that bend the rules of life and time, and hidden worlds beneath forests and oceans that are always moving, always communicating. Even in the stillness, this relaxing story will guide you through some of those quiet wonders in a way that is soothing, unhurried, and easy to fall asleep to. You might find that some of these mysteries gently change how you see the world around you. Others may simply drift past like lanterns on a slow river, leaving behind a feeling more than a memory. You do not need to hold on to every fact or detail. You can just listen, let the words wash over you, and allow curiosity to mix with drowsiness. If peaceful, calming narration and soft wonder help you unwind, you are in the right place. For now, make yourself as comfortable as you can. Let your body sink into the mattress or the couch. Feel the support beneath you, and let your shoulders soften. You might close your eyes if that feels good, and follow a gentle breath in and a long, quiet breath out. This is your moment. Nothing is urgent here. As this sleep story unfolds, you can simply rest and listen as we wander through some of the most relaxing mysteries of life on Earth. Somewhere in the gentle sway of warm coastal waters, a tiny, transparent traveler drifts with the currents. It is known as the immortal jellyfish, a delicate creature that quietly challenges one of the deepest rules of living things, that every life must move in only one direction, from youth toward old age. When this jellyfish is injured, stressed, or has reached a later stage of its life, it does something astonishing. Instead of moving forward, it turns back. Imagine a butterfly gently folding in on itself and returning to the safety of a chrysalis, not just once, but again and again. The immortal jellyfish does something similar when conditions become too difficult. It transforms its adult body back into a much earlier, simpler stage, like returning to its childhood form. From there, it begins its life cycle anew, as though it has quietly pressed a reset button. Scientists who have studied it in calm, careful laboratory settings have seen this cycle repeat more than once, suggesting that, at least in theory, this little being could renew itself over and over, as long as nothing destroys it. This does not mean that humans can copy its secret, or that we are any closer to living forever. Instead, the immortal jellyfish serves as a soft reminder that life on Earth is full of solutions and pathways that are almost dreamlike in their creativity. While it drifts silently through the dark water, it carries within it a story about time that feels more like a legend than a fact. A creature that can gently rewind its own life, returning to an earlier chapter whenever the current moment becomes too much. Far from the ocean, in the cool hush of a forest, another kind of mystery is unfolding just out of sight. At first, a forest can seem like a gathering of individual trees, each standing alone, each reaching for the light in its own way. But under the soft layer of fallen leaves and soil, a different picture appears. Thin, delicate threads of fungi weave their way through the earth, forming quiet connections between roots. Through this hidden lattice, trees share water, nutrients, and faint chemical messages in a slow, steady exchange. Some of the oldest, tallest trees seem to act like gentle elders, passing along resources to younger or more shaded neighbors. A tree that is struggling might receive extra support. One that is nearing the end of its life may release its remaining energy back into the community around it. This network is not conscious in the way humans are, yet it behaves like a deeply cooperative system, transforming the forest from a group of separate beings into something closer to a single, breathing organism. When you picture a quiet woodland now, you might imagine not just trunks and leaves, but a soft, shimmering web underfoot, carrying silent messages from tree to tree. Then there are the water bears, or tardigrades, so small that an entire crowd of them could fit on the head of a pin. Under a microscope, they look like tiny, plump explorers with 8 stubby legs and a slow, almost endearing way of moving. Their size suggests fragility, but in truth, they are some of the toughest known creatures on Earth. When their world becomes too harsh, too hot, too cold, too dry, they curl in on themselves and enter a special resting state, folding their bodies into a tight, protective form. In this paused state, their life processes become incredibly quiet, almost entirely still, allowing them to endure conditions that would be impossible for most other forms of life. They can ride out intense cold, extreme heat, heavy pressure, and even the emptiness of space. Years may pass like this while they wait, patient and silent. Then, when water returns, when conditions soften, they slowly unfurl and come back to active life. It is as though they have learned to hold their breath across time itself, a reminder that even the smallest beings can carry vast, surprising abilities. Even the very air you are breathing has its own deep, mysterious story. Long before humans walked the earth, before animals and forests and oceans as we know them, the atmosphere was very different. The oxygen that now feels so natural, flowing in and out with every gentle breath you take, was once rare, even dangerous to many forms of early life. Tiny ancient organisms, thriving without oxygen, lived in a world that would feel uninhabitable to us. Then, slowly, other microscopic beings began releasing oxygen as part of their everyday processes. At first, the change was subtle, stretching out over vast spans of time. But little by little, this invisible gas accumulated in oceans and sky, transforming the entire planet. For some early creatures, oxygen was harmful, bringing an end to their long reign. For others, it opened the door to new ways of living, new sources of energy, and eventually to the complex life that would someday lead to forests, animals, and people. Each breath you take now carries this history within it, a quiet connection to ancient seas and long-vanished worlds. And while many plants simply reach toward the sun and draw quiet nourishment from the soil, a few have taken a more unusual path. Some have evolved clever ways to supplement their diet by capturing and digesting small animals. These plants are not fierce or frightening in the way a storybook monster might be. Instead, they sit very still, waiting, their colors and shapes forming gentle traps. An insect lands, curious or unaware, and finds itself slowly caught, not by speed or strength, but by patient design. Even here, in this quiet act of hunting, there is a sense of delicate balance rather than violence. These plants exist in places where the soil is thin or poor, where the usual sources of nourishment are hard to find, so they have adapted in their own slow, silent way. They remind us that life is always feeling its way forward, always finding new paths to survive and grow. Whether in a glowing ocean, a forest of whispering roots, or a patch of boggy ground where leaves themselves become gentle hunters. As you continue listening to this nighttime story, you can let these images fade softly in your mind. Glowing seas, immortal jellyfish, whispering trees, tiny water bears, and ancient air as you drift deeper into rest. As the night deepens and you stay gently anchored in this calming bedtime story, the focus returns to the quiet, patient world of plants. Some plants, especially those living in thin, nutrient-poor soils, have found unusual ways to survive. Instead of growing bigger roots or stronger stems, they have turned to a different kind of strategy. They have become very slow, very subtle hunters. In soft wetlands and mossy bogs, plants like Venus flytraps, pitcher plants, and sundews wait without moving, inviting small insects closer with sweet scents, glistening droplets, or inviting shapes. A Venus flytrap looks almost like an open, delicate mouth lined with tiny, sensitive hairs. When an insect wanders inside and brushes against these hairs more than once, the plant seems to count those touches. Only when it senses enough movement does it slowly close, folding its two halves together like gentle hands cupping a prize. Pitcher plants take a different approach. Their leaves curl into deep, smooth-sided tubes that hold small pools of liquid. To an insect, the rim of the pitcher may seem safe, but once it ventures too far, the slick surface offers little grip, and it quietly slips down into the waiting pool. Sundews shimmer softly in the light, their delicate tentacles tipped with dew-like drops that look like tiny beads of nectar. When a small insect lands and becomes stuck, these filaments respond gradually, curling inwards in a slow, embracing motion. None of these plants move quickly or aggressively. Their methods are patient and precise, shaped by the need to find extra nutrients in places where the soil simply cannot provide enough. By gently capturing insects, they gather the nitrogen they need to thrive, turning stillness and design into a quiet form of survival. These carnivorous plants remind us that even the gentlest green leaf may carry hidden abilities that are easy to overlook. Survival in their world is not about speed or sharp teeth, but about careful adaptation and elegance. In the soft light of this relaxing sleep story, you can picture them resting in their marshes and bogs, waiting calmly, part of the landscape, yet holding a secret hunger that keeps them alive. Now imagine holding an ordinary leaf up toward the light of a calm afternoon, or picturing it in your mind as you lie in the dark. What seems simple at first becomes more intricate the longer you look. Every leaf, from the smallest sprig in a crack of pavement to the broad frond of a rainforest plant, carries its own pattern of veins and shapes. As unique as a fingerprint, these veins branch and spread like tiny rivers, carrying water and dissolved minerals from the roots up into every corner of the leaf, and delivering the sugars made during photosynthesis back to the rest of the plant. On the surface of the leaf, invisible to the naked eye, are minute openings that behave like tiny valves. These pores, called stomata, open and close in response to light, moisture, and other cues, letting carbon dioxide in and allowing oxygen and water vapor to flow out. Inside, the green pigment chlorophyll absorbs sunlight and turns that gentle light into usable energy. In doing so, leaves quietly support not only the plant they belong to, but almost every form of life on Earth, including us. Each leaf, no matter how small, is like a little solar-powered workshop, constantly at work while appearing perfectly still. Some leaves slowly follow the sun as it moves across the sky, turning to catch the light more efficiently throughout the day. Others have surfaces that repel water, causing raindrops to bead and roll away like pearls. A few even help with unusual tasks, storing warmth, trapping insects, or surviving in harsh winds and cold. The next time you picture a leaf, you might imagine not just a flat patch of green, but a living, responsive structure, fragile and temporary, yet full of purpose and quiet complexity. Far from the forests and fields, another gentle wonder appears where the land meets the sea. Picture yourself walking along a calm shoreline at night, the air cool, the waves rolling in with a steady, soothing rhythm. As the water curls and breaks, the foam suddenly flickers with a soft blue-green glow, as if the ocean itself is breathing out light. This is no trick of the moon and no human-made lamp. It is a natural glow created by tiny organisms drifting in the water, known as bioluminescent plankton. When the surface of the water is disturbed by a wave, a footprint, or the arc of a swimmer's hand, these small beings release a brief flash of light. Each individual glow is faint, but together they can paint entire stretches of sea with a shifting, magical shimmer. The light is the result of a gentle chemical reaction within their bodies, a cold, efficient glow similar to the light of fireflies flickering in summer air. In some special places around the world, certain bays and lagoons can glow so steadily that every movement in the water leaves a glowing trail, turning the shoreline into a quiet, moving dream. bioluminescence has appeared many times in the history of life, especially in the oceans. Creatures use it for different reasons, some to hide by matching their light to their surroundings, some to communicate, and some to startle or distract. But from the perspective of someone simply standing on the sand, toes in the water, it feels like a reminder that even unseen, microscopic life can transform a dark night into something gentle and wondrous. The sea, which can seem so vast and empty after sunset, becomes a living, glowing presence, softly illuminating the edges of the waves. As you rest deeper into this nighttime story, turn your attention inward for a moment. It is easy to think of yourself as a single being, one person lying in a bed, listening to a relaxing story. Yet, on a microscopic scale, your body is home to an immense community of tiny lives. Trillions of microbes, bacteria, fungi, and other small organisms live on your skin, in your mouth, and especially in your digestive system. Together, they form what is called your microbiome, a vast, invisible ecosystem that moves with you wherever you go. These quiet companions help break down food, create important vitamins, and train your immune system to recognize what is helpful and what might be harmful. Some of them seem to influence how you feel, gently affecting mood, energy, and even sleep. In a way, your body and your microbiome act as partners, each depending on the other in ways that are still being discovered. Just as no two forests are the same, no two microbiomes are identical. Yours is uniquely yours, shaped by your life, your environment, and your experiences. Thinking of yourself as a walking ecosystem can be strangely comforting. Even when you feel alone in a room, your body is carrying whole worlds of tiny life, all quietly doing their work without asking for your attention. You are not just one thing, but many, living and moving together in a balanced, ongoing conversation. Beyond your own body, out in the forests and jungles of the world, there are other examples of living systems behaving as one. Picture a column of army ants moving steadily across the forest floor, flowing around twigs and leaves like a dark, shifting river. When this living stream reaches a gap, a fallen branch, a small ditch, or another obstacle, it does not simply stop. Instead, some of the ants begin to link their bodies together, forming chains that stretch from one side of the gap to the other. One ant grips a surface, another clings to that ant, and more continue to join until a bridge of bodies takes shape. Other ants walk across this living structure, carrying food or following the trail onward, while the bridge constantly adjusts to their movement and weight. There is no central commander giving orders. Instead, each ant responds to its neighbors, to gentle pushes and touches. And from these countless small decisions, a strong, flexible bridge emerges. When the colony has finished crossing, the ants release their hold, the bridge dissolves, and the living river continues on its way. Deep beneath the waves, in the stillness of the ocean's quieter layers, another kind of intelligence is at work. Octopuses glide through rocky crevices and along sandy sea floors with a grace that seems almost like liquid thought. Their arms explore. Their skin shifts color and texture in an instant, and their eyes watch with an alert, curious gaze. They are already known as some of the most intelligent animals on Earth, capable of solving puzzles, remembering patterns, and adapting to new situations with surprising creativity. What makes them even more mysterious is the way they can adjust not just their behavior, but the way their bodies read their own genetic instructions. While most animals follow a fixed script written in DNA, octopuses have the ability to edit the RNA that helps carry those instructions into action. In simple terms, this means they can fine-tune how certain genes are expressed, allowing for a flexible response to their environment that goes deeper than ordinary learning. It is as though, in the dim blue of the underwater world, they hold a quiet toolkit for rewriting small parts of themselves as they go. As you lie here listening to this gentle sleep story, you can let these images drift slowly through your mind. Patient plants that hunt without moving, leaves that are tiny machines of light and air, oceans that glow softly in the dark, your own body carrying an unseen community, ants building living bridges, and octopuses adjusting their inner code. Each mystery is a reminder that life on Earth is far more intricate, cooperative, and adaptable than it first appears, offering a steady, soothing sense of wonder as you fall deeper toward sleep. As the night grows a little quieter and you sink more deeply into this calming sleep story, the octopus remains in the soft darkness of the sea, wrapped in its own quiet strangeness. Its body is not fixed and rigid, but fluid and adaptable, and so is much of its inner biology. Instead of simply accepting the genetic instructions it was born with, the octopus can gently adjust how those instructions are read, changing the way certain cells and neurons behave. This does not rewrite its core DNA, but it does allow for subtle, real-time tuning of how its body and brain respond to the world. Through these delicate edits, an octopus can fine-tune how it reacts to temperature, how its nervous system processes signals, and how it adapts to shifting conditions in its underwater home. The full reasons and mechanisms behind this ability are still not completely understood, adding yet another layer of mystery to a creature that already feels half like an animal and half like a living riddle, floating there in the dim light, changing color and texture as easily as another creature might take a breath. The octopus seems to blur the line between instinct and something more flexible, more experimental. From this hidden intelligence beneath the waves, the story drifts to another kind of awareness, this time on land, and in the way some animals respond to their own reflection. Many creatures can see themselves in a mirror, but only a few behave as though they understand that the figure looking back is their own body. To explore this, researchers sometimes place a small, harmless mark on an animal in a spot it can only see by looking in a reflective surface. If the animal uses the mirror image as a guide to inspect or touch that mark on its own body, it suggests a kind of self-recognition, a faint sense of "that is me." So far, only a limited group of animals have reliably shown this kind of response. Certain great apes, like chimpanzees and orangutans, have done it. Some dolphins and elephants have too, along with a few bird species such as magpies, and possibly even some types of fish and rays. Their minds are not human minds, and this awareness is not the same as human consciousness, but it hints at something quietly profound, that the spark of selfhood, the ability to distinguish I from other, may glimmer in many different shapes and bodies across the tree of life. The boundary between oneself and the rest of the world is softer and more varied than it first appears. Life on Earth, with all these different minds and bodies, has passed through many periods of upheaval and loss over hundreds of millions of years. Our planet has experienced multiple mass extinctions, moments when most existing species vanished in a relatively short span of geologic time. The most severe of these events wiped out the vast majority of marine life and most land-dwelling species as well, reshaping entire ecosystems. Volcanoes, shifting climates, and impacts from space have all played their part in these global transformations. And yet, after each collapse, something remarkable happened. Tiny survivors, small animals, stubborn plants, resilient microbes, endured in pockets and refuges. From these quiet remnants, life slowly expanded again, diversifying into new forms, new branches, new possibilities. The world that followed was never the same as the one before, but it was alive, vibrant, and evolving. When you trace your own existence back through time, you are connected to those survivors, to beings that lived through darkness, scarcity, and silence, and still managed to move forward. Life does not simply persist. It continually reshapes itself, finding new ways to exist even after immense loss. In the cool shade of a forest, another story of survival and control unfolds, though it is more eerie than comforting. Among fallen leaves and damp logs, delicate fungal threads move unseen. Some of these fungi have developed an extraordinary strategy. They infect insects, slip quietly into their bodies, and begin to influence their behavior from within. An ant carrying such a fungus may suddenly leave its usual path, climb higher into the vegetation, and clamp down on a leaf or twig, holding fast. Once the insect is in just the right position, the fungus completes its work, ending the ant's life and growing outward through its body. A slender stalk emerges, releasing new spores that drift down to the forest floor, ready to begin the cycle again. Scientists are still uncovering exactly how these fungi manage to steer an insect's actions with such precision. It is a reminder that in the soft, mossy quiet of a woodland, powerful forces are always at play, some graceful and cooperative, others unsettling and precise. The forest, seen this way, is not only peaceful and green, but full of hidden strategies and silent conflicts, all woven into the fabric of life. From the shadowy undergrowth, the story moves to a different kind of wonder, the rare and delicate color blue. At first glance, blue seems common: the wide sky overhead, the sweep of the ocean, the flash of a wing or feather. But in terms of actual pigments, true blue is surprisingly scarce in living things. Many animals and plants that appear blue do not hold blue dye within their tissues at all. Instead, they use extremely fine structures at the microscopic level to bend and scatter light, so that mainly blue wavelengths reach our eyes. This effect, known as structural coloration, means that the color we see is created by shape and pattern rather than by chemical pigment. The wings of a butterfly, the feathers of a peacock, or the sheen of a bird's crest may all owe their blue to this careful arrangement of tiny structures. Because genuine blue pigments are difficult for most organisms to produce, these optical tricks become a clever solution. The next time you picture a flash of blue in nature, you can imagine it as light itself being gently choreographed by delicate architecture. Rather than simple color, it is a quiet dance between biology and physics, hidden in every shimmer. On the open plains, under tall grasses and wide skies, another emotional mystery takes shape in the lives of elephants. These large, thoughtful animals form close family bonds and carry strong memories of the places and companions that matter to them. When an elephant encounters the bones or body of a deceased relative or familiar individual, its behavior often changes. It may slow its pace, explore the remains with its trunk, and stand quietly nearby for a long time. Some elephants have been observed returning to such places long after, revisiting the bones as though acknowledging something important that once was there. They have also been seen keeping watch near the sick or dying, lingering instead of simply moving on. No one can say exactly what an elephant feels, but their actions suggest a kind of grief, a recognition that a life has ended, and that its absence matters. In them, we glimpse the possibility that sorrow, attachment, and care are not uniquely human feelings, but part of a wider, older story shared across species. Far from the savannah, in warm, clear seas, another collective wonder quietly builds and grows. Coral reefs, with all their colors and bustling life, might look at first like rocky gardens or underwater plants. In truth, they are constructed by countless tiny animals called coral polyps. Each one is small and soft-bodied, but over time, they create sturdy skeletons of calcium carbonate, layering and expanding into vast, intricate structures. These coral animals live in partnership with microscopic algae that dwell inside their tissues, sharing energy produced from sunlight. Together, coral and algae form the foundation for some of the richest ecosystems on Earth, providing shelter and sustenance for fish, invertebrates, and many other creatures. A reef is like an underwater city, built slowly by fragile architects, each polyp contributing a tiny piece to a much larger whole. When you imagine a coral reef now, you might see not just bright shapes and darting fish, but the patient work of uncountable small lives, joining their efforts into something grand and enduring. As this gentle nighttime story continues, all of these scenes, octopuses adjusting their inner scripts, animals glimpsing themselves in mirrors, life enduring extinction and rebirth, fungi guiding insects, blue made from light itself, elephants grieving, and coral building living stone come together as reminders of how deep and varied Earth's mysteries truly are. You can let these images move slowly through your mind, then soften and fade as you drift a little further toward rest and sleep. As you continue to settle into this relaxing sleep story, the scene returns to the quiet, sunlit waters where coral reefs grow. Each reef, no matter how immense, begins with something very small, soft-bodied coral polyps that look a bit like tiny sea anemones. These little animals extend delicate, stinging tentacles to catch drifting plankton and other particles from the water. While they feed, they also slowly build, releasing calcium carbonate to form a protective, stony framework around themselves. Over years, then centuries, these skeletal layers accumulate, joining together into broad, intricate formations. What begins as a fragile ring around a single polyp gradually becomes part of a much larger structure, shaped by countless generations. Over time, reefs can stretch for great distances, forming underwater ridges and barrier systems that run for hundreds of miles. Within this three-dimensional maze, an extraordinary variety of life finds shelter. Bright fish weaving between crevices, crustaceans hiding in cracks, mollusks clinging to the rock, sea turtles gliding past, and many other creatures moving through the shifting patterns of light and shadow. Although coral reefs cover only a very small fraction of the ocean floor, they support an astonishing share of marine species, acting as nurseries, feeding grounds, and safe harbors. In this way, reefs are like living cities built without plans or blueprints, shaped instead by the slow, continuous effort of uncounted tiny builders. Each polyp contributes just a little, and together they create vast, delicate worlds that depend on clear water, gentle temperatures, and balanced conditions. Their beauty and vulnerability are closely linked. As you picture these underwater landscapes, you might imagine them as patient monuments to cooperation and time, rising from the invisible work of millions of unseen hands. From these coral cities, the story moves to something that looks far simpler, but hides a surprising kind of problem solving. Slime molds, a name that sounds almost like a creature from a dream, are made of single cells or loose, flowing masses of cells that live in damp, shaded places, on rotting logs, in leaf litter, or in rich soil. They have no brain, no central control center, and yet, when given a challenge, they behave in ways that resemble careful decision-making. In laboratory experiments, a slime mold is sometimes placed in a maze with food sources at different points. At first, the organism spreads itself out in many directions, like a slow-moving film of color, searching every corner. Over time, though, it begins to withdraw from less useful paths, leaving thicker, more stable strands along the shortest and most efficient route between the food sources. Without thoughts or plans, it essentially solves the maze, simplifying its network into the best pathway. Researchers have compared the shapes formed by slime molds to human-designed transportation systems and found surprising similarities. This suggests that certain patterns of efficiency may arise naturally, even in systems with no brain at all. It is a quiet reminder that intelligence and problem solving can emerge from very simple rules written into the body rather than the mind. Far above these tiny explorers on a continental scale, another living system shapes its own environment in a much grander way. The Amazon rainforest, vast and richly layered, does not simply receive rain, it helps to create it every day. As sunlight warms the dense canopy, billions of leaves release moisture into the air in an invisible flow called transpiration. This water vapor rises upward, cools as it climbs, and gathers into clouds that later release their moisture as rain, falling back onto the forest below. This continuous cycle means that the rainforest is, in a sense, watering itself, maintaining its own humidity and supporting its lush growth. The effect is so strong and so widespread that it influences weather patterns over much of a continent and even reaches across oceans to affect distant climates. The forest acts not just as a patch of trees, but as a vast, breathing system that exhales water into the sky. When large areas are cleared or burned, this loop begins to weaken. With fewer trees, less moisture rises, rainfall can diminish, and dry periods can become more frequent. Thinking of the Amazon as both a green expanse and a kind of atmospheric heart makes its role in the planet's balance feel even more profound. In colder regions, where winter brings deep frosts, another extraordinary adaptation quietly unfolds. Some small frogs, like the wood frog, use freezing not as a threat, but as a survival strategy. As temperatures drop, these frogs can become almost completely solid with ice. Their heart stops beating, their breathing ceases, and much of the water in their bodies turns to ice crystals to protect themselves from damage. They produce natural compounds that act like biological antifreeze, helping to shield their cells from harm, even as the spaces between those cells freeze. To an outside observer, a frozen frog looks like a small, lifeless statue, locked in winter's grip. Yet, when warmer weather returns and the ice around them begins to melt, these frogs slowly revive. Their hearts start beating again, their blood flows, their muscles soften, and eventually they hop and move as though waking from a long, deep sleep. This process is not magic, but the result of intricate chemistry and finely tuned evolution. Scientists study these animals in hopes of better understanding how to preserve organs, tissues, or perhaps one day whole organisms for medical purposes. For now, the frogs remain quiet examples of resilience, slipping in and out of a suspended state as the seasons turn. Beneath the rolling surfaces of the oceans, another slow and steady rhythm carries across great distances. The songs of whales. In the dim, open water where light can no longer reach, sound becomes the primary way of sensing and connecting. Large whales, such as blue whales and fin whales, produce low, powerful calls that can travel for hundreds or even thousands of miles through the deep. These sounds move easily through water, curving around seafloor features and echoing through underwater valleys. Whales use these long, resonant calls to communicate with one another, to find mates, and perhaps to coordinate movements across their vast ranges. Different groups can have distinct patterns or dialects in their songs, and over time, these patterns can gradually change, like a shared melody evolving from generation to generation. Some species, such as humpback whales, create especially elaborate sequences of notes and phrases that can last for many minutes, weaving together repeating themes and new variations. Listening to their calls is like overhearing a distant conversation that humans only partly understand, clearly meaningful, but still wrapped in mystery. In the quiet of this bedtime story, you might imagine these songs drifting gently through dark water, carrying messages between beings that have been traveling the oceans far longer than our own species has existed. On land once more, the story returns to something very small, but full of potential: seeds. To the eye, a seed may appear dry, still, and simple, like a tiny stone or grain, yet inside, it holds a blueprint for life, and in some cases, an extraordinary patience. Many seeds can wait for years before sprouting, biding their time until moisture, temperature, and light are just right. A few have remained viable for centuries. In rare and carefully documented cases, ancient seeds found in archaeological sites have been coaxed back to life, sending up new shoots into a world completely changed from the one they first knew. Seeds endure cold winters under snow, survive the heat of fires, or rest beneath layers of soil and sediment, protected by tough outer coats and specialized chemistry. They are tuned to respond only when conditions promise a real chance of survival. After the rains arrive, after the soil warms, or after a disturbance has opened space and light. When that moment comes, they begin a slow, steady unfolding, breaking their shells, extending roots, and reaching for the sky. In this way, seeds act as nature's quiet time travelers, carrying the potential of forests, fields, and flowers across years, decades, and sometimes entire eras of human history. As you listen and drift, you can let all these images form a gentle tapestry in your mind. Coral polyps building underwater cities, brainless slime molds tracing efficient paths, a rainforest lifting moisture into clouds, frogs pausing life in frozen stillness, whales singing across oceans, and seeds sleeping through the ages. Each one is a different expression of life's creativity, a small part of the larger, soothing mystery of the world you are resting in tonight. As you continue to relax into this gentle nighttime story, imagine again the quiet patience of a seed. Inside that small shell lies a plan for roots, stems, and leaves, all carefully folded into something that can wait through cold seasons, dry years, and long stretches of stillness. A seed can rest buried in soil, sealed in a forgotten container, or hidden in ancient ruins, carrying its silent promise forward through time. When moisture, warmth, and light finally arrive in the right balance, that promise stirs, and life slowly unfolds from within, as if the future had been sleeping in a tiny cradle all along. From this soft image of stored potential, the story glides back into the dark, where another kind of quiet magic appears as light. Bioluminescence, the ability of living things to create their own glow, is not a single invention, but a solution that life has discovered again and again. Fireflies blinking in warm summer air, plankton sparkling in breaking waves, jellyfish drifting like floating lanterns, and deep-sea creatures with glowing lures all share versions of the same luminous language. In each case, chemical reactions within their bodies release energy as gentle light. No electricity and no sun required. The basic pattern is elegant. A special molecule holds potential energy, and an enzyme helps release that energy in the form of a soft glow. Different species use this light in many ways: to attract food, to confuse or warn predators, to communicate with mates, or to blend into the faint glimmer of the surrounding water and effectively disappear. In the deep ocean, where sunlight never reaches, bioluminescence is not rare, but common, turning the darkness into a moving constellation of living stars. In caves, forests, and distant seas, this same quiet chemistry plays out in different colors and patterns, as though life has written its own script for starlight on Earth. As you breathe slowly and rest, you can turn your attention inward again to the elements that make up your own body. It may sound like a line from a poem, but it is also a description of how the universe works. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the carbon in your cells, and the oxygen you breathe were all forged in ancient stars. In the hearts of massive stars, lighter elements were fused into heavier ones over long stretches of cosmic time. When those stars reached the end of their lives, some exploded as supernovae, scattering their newly created elements across space in clouds of dust and gas. Over eons, these clouds cooled, settled, and were drawn together by gravity, forming new stars, planets, and eventually worlds where life could arise. On this small blue planet, those same elements became rivers and rocks, air and oceans, and finally living beings capable of thought and feeling. When you move your hand or take a breath, you are witnessing the motions of material that once burned in stellar cores. You are not just in the universe. You are a small, beautiful arrangement of the universe itself, with the capacity to listen, to dream, and to drift peacefully towards sleep. The story then shifts to how other creatures perceive the world in ways that are hidden from human senses. When you look at a flower, you might see a bright yellow, a deep red, or a soft blue petal. To many insects, especially bees, the same flower looks far more intricate. Because they can see ultraviolet light, which lies beyond the range of human vision, they perceive extra patterns and markings that are invisible to us. What appears simple to human eyes may glow with rings, stripes, or pathways in ultraviolet, gently guiding pollinators toward the nectar at the center. These patterns are not decorative in a human sense. They are part of a shared communication between plant and pollinator, shaped by mutual benefit. The flower offers food, and in return, the insect carries pollen from bloom to bloom, helping the plant reproduce. Other insects also use ultraviolet vision in their own ways to find mates, to navigate, or to detect subtle contrasts that reveal hidden predators or food sources. Even common butterflies perceive their surroundings in colors and contrasts we cannot fully imagine. It is a reminder that the world around you contains layers of light and pattern beyond what your eyes can see, existing all the time just outside your familiar spectrum. Far away, under the wide skies of Australia, another quiet marvel is unfolding in the bodies of kangaroos. Life in the outback can be unpredictable. Droughts, sudden changes in vegetation, and shifting conditions make it difficult to know when food will be abundant. To cope with this, female kangaroos have evolved a remarkable ability known as embryonic diapause. After an egg is fertilized, its development can be gently placed on hold instead of continuing straight into a full pregnancy. This pause allows the mother to balance her responsibilities. She might be feeding an older joey outside the pouch, nursing a younger one nestled against her, and at the same time carrying a tiny embryo that is temporarily waiting, its growth delayed until conditions are better. When resources improve, or when the pouch becomes free, the embryo resumes its development and continues along the path toward birth. It is as though the kangaroo's body carries its own internal sense of timing, able to align new life with the rhythms of the land. In a place of extremes, this flexible pause button becomes a gentle tool for survival, giving her family a better chance to thrive. Back beneath the waves, the coral reefs introduced earlier hold yet another secret in their living neighborhoods. Among their bright fish and shifting shadows, live species that can change something as fundamental as their own sex when circumstances call for it. In some reef fish, social dynamics determine who is male and who is female, and those roles can change over time. Clownfish, for example, often live in small groups where the largest individual is female and the next largest is the breeding male. If the female dies, the male gradually transforms into a female, and another member of the group takes on the male role. In other species, such as some wrasses, a dominant female may become male when the existing male disappears. This transformation involves changes in behavior, hormones, and even reproductive organs. It is not a simple switch, but a carefully orchestrated shift that helps ensure that mating can still occur even when group structures change. In the ever-moving, sometimes unpredictable environment of a coral reef, this flexibility allows populations to adapt quickly, filling important roles as needed. It is another illustration of how fluid and responsive life can be when shaped by the pressures of survival. High above the reefs and forests, far beyond seeds and slime molds, birds trace long, invisible paths across the sky. Many migratory birds travel thousands of miles between their breeding and wintering grounds, often returning to the same regions year after year with astonishing accuracy. Part of their success comes from a sense that humans cannot directly feel: the ability to detect Earth's magnetic field. Deep within their bodies, some birds carry tiny particles of magnetic material or specialized light-sensitive molecules that help them orient themselves like living compasses as they fly. These inner senses combine with visual landmarks, the position of the sun and stars, and memories of familiar routes. The result is a kind of layered navigation system that guides them over oceans, mountains, and vast stretches of land with a precision that feels almost unreal. On a calm night, you might imagine flocks passing far overhead, following lines written not on maps, but in the gentle pull of the planet itself. In their journeys, as in so many of Earth's mysteries, there is a quiet example of how deeply life is tuned to the world it inhabits. As this relaxing sleep story continues, you can let all of these images settle softly in your mind. Seeds holding time, living lights in the dark, your stardust bones, hidden ultraviolet patterns, kangaroos pausing new life, fish shifting identity, and birds reading the sky. You do not need to remember any of it clearly. You can simply rest with the feeling that the universe, from the smallest cell to the widest migration, is full of gentle, intricate wonders surrounding you as you drift deeper into sleep. As you sink a little more deeply into this calming sleep story, imagine a flock of birds flying far above dark fields and quiet seas, guided by more than just sight or memory. Within their bodies, subtle tools help them sense Earth's magnetic field, turning an invisible force into something they can feel and use. Some birds carry tiny particles of magnetic material in their tissues, while others may rely on special light-sensitive proteins in their eyes that let them perceive faint patterns linked to the planet's magnetism. Together, these inner instruments form a sense known as magnetoreception. This magnetic awareness works alongside the position of the sun, the glow of stars, and the shapes of coastlines and mountains to help them travel. It is like an ancient map woven into their nervous systems, allowing them to follow routes that their ancestors have flown for countless generations. Even if clouds hide the stars or landmarks shift, they can still find their way, feeling the gentle pull of the earth itself. In this way, birds return home not only through habit or instinct, but by listening to the quiet, unseen lines of force that wrap around the world. From the sky, the story turns back to the planet as a whole, to one of its deepest, slowest rhythms, the carbon cycle. Carbon is a basic building block of life, and it continually moves through air, water, soil, plants, animals, and stone in an ongoing exchange. When you exhale, you release carbon dioxide into the air. Plants draw that carbon in, using it during photosynthesis to form leaves, stems, and roots. Animals eat the plants, incorporating the carbon into their own bodies. When plants and animals die, decomposers break them down, returning some of that carbon to the atmosphere and some to the earth. Volcanoes release carbon from deep within the planet, while oceans absorb and store vast amounts of it, holding part of it in dissolved form and part in the shells and bodies of marine life. over very long periods, some carbon becomes trapped in rocks or fossil fuels, waiting silently underground for ages. This cycle helps regulate climate, nourish ecosystems, and sustain life. In recent history, human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels and changes to forests, have added extra carbon dioxide to the air faster than natural systems can balance. Remembering that Earth's carbon exchange is like a slow, planetary breath can help make sense of why these changes matter. They shift the rhythm of that breath, warming the world and gently, but steadily altering the conditions in which life has grown comfortable. Long before forests and animals shaped the landscape, tiny organisms were already at work, building parts of the world we stand on today. Bacteria, among the earliest forms of life, created structures that still exist in certain shallow waters. These formations, called stromatolites, are layered, rock-like mounds formed as microbial communities trap and bind sediments over time. Each new layer adds to the last, creating rounded pillars or domes that can grow slowly over many years. Fossil stromatolites, some more than 3.5 billion years old, are among the oldest evidence of life on Earth. The microbes that built them, early cyanobacteria, also played a major role in transforming the atmosphere. As they performed photosynthesis, they released oxygen as a byproduct, gradually changing the air from one that could not support complex life into one that eventually could. In a few quiet corners of the modern world, living stromatolites still grow, their surfaces coated in thin films of bacteria that continue to add layers, just as they did long ago. Seen this way, these humble mounds become ancient monuments, shaped not by hands or tools, but by the patient, combined work of countless microscopic lives. Drifting back into the oceans, the story finds another example of complex communication beneath the waves. Dolphins, moving through clear blue water in fluid, social groups, use a rich variety of sounds to stay connected. Clicks, whistles, and other calls that pass easily through the sea. Among these sounds, each dolphin develops a particular whistle pattern early in life, a unique acoustic signature that functions much like a name. Other dolphins learn and remember these specific whistles, using them to call out to individuals, even across distances. When researchers have played recordings of a dolphin's own signature whistle, the animal often responds with clear recognition, as though hearing something deeply familiar. This behavior suggests that dolphins keep track of each other as distinct beings, each with its own identity and history. In their calls, there are hints of a social world full of relationships, alliances, and memories, all supported by a kind of naming system carried entirely in sound. Listening to them is like overhearing the earliest echoes of something very close to language itself, evolving in a medium of water and waves. On land, where sands stretch to the horizon, another story of transformation lies, hidden beneath the present-day landscape. The Sahara, now known as a vast, dry desert of dunes and rocky plains, was once a much greener place. Several thousand years ago, this region received regular rainfall, rivers flowed, lakes shimmered in the sun, and grasses and trees covered large areas that are now bare. Animals such as elephants, giraffes, and crocodiles moved through these habitats, and human communities lived there as well, leaving behind rock art that still shows scenes of a thriving, watery world. This greener phase, often called the African humid period, was shaped by subtle shifts in Earth's orbit and in the strength of seasonal monsoons. Over time, as those patterns changed again, the rains weakened and the vegetation faded, giving way to the desert that dominates today. Under the dunes, traces of that earlier landscape remain: fossil lake beds, preserved sediments, and buried evidence of plants and animals. Thinking of the Sahara as both a present desert and a memory of past greenery offers a quiet reminder that even the most seemingly permanent places on Earth can change profoundly over long stretches of time. Back in the world of small, buzzing wings, another piece of hidden intelligence emerges. Bees, already known as skilled navigators and essential pollinators, have shown abilities that go beyond simple foraging. In careful experiments, bees were taught to associate smaller numbers of shapes with a reward. Over time, they learned that fewer meant better in that context. When given a choice that included a card with no shapes at all, they often selected the blank one as representing the smallest amount. This suggests that bees can grasp the idea that nothing is less than something, touching on an abstract concept close to zero. Only a few animals have demonstrated this level of numerical understanding, and bees manage it with brains far smaller than those of mammals or birds. Inside each tiny head, densely packed neurons support navigation, communication dances, and now, it seems, a basic sense of number. Within the hive, thousands of individuals work together as a superorganism. Yet even a single bee carries impressive capabilities on its own. It is another reminder that intelligence does not always depend on size. Sometimes it appears in miniature, buzzing softly through gardens and fields. Finally, the story turns to a landscape where wild rivers and forests reveal how interconnected life and environment truly are. In Yellowstone National Park, the removal and later return of wolves became a living experiment in balance. For many years, wolves were absent from this ecosystem, and during that time, deer and elk populations grew and grazed freely across open areas and riverbanks. When wolves were reintroduced, their presence changed the behavior of these grazing animals. Instead of lingering for long periods in vulnerable spots like exposed valleys and stream edges, they began to move more often and avoid certain areas. With fewer animals constantly nibbling at young shoots along the water, plants had a chance to recover. Willows, aspens, and other vegetation grew taller and thicker along riverbanks, stabilizing the soil and reducing erosion. Over time, the strengthened banks helped guide and shape the flow of water, subtly altering the courses of streams and improving habitats for birds, beavers, and fish. In this way, the influence of wolves extended far beyond their own species, rippling outward through plants, animals, and even the paths of rivers. It is a gentle, powerful example of how every part of an ecosystem is linked, and how the return of one missing piece can encourage an entire landscape to heal and rearrange itself. As you rest with these images, birds feeling invisible forces, earth breathing carbon in long, slow cycles, ancient bacteria building stone, dolphins calling each other by name, deserts that remember rain, bees that understand nothing, and wolves helping rivers find new shapes. You can let your mind grow quiet. The mysteries of this planet continue whether you think about them or not. For now, you can simply relax, breathe softly, and drift a little deeper into sleep, held by the gentle knowledge that you are part of this intricate, living world. As you lie here, breathing a little more slowly, the story returns for a moment to Yellowstone's forests and rivers, where the presence of wolves set off a quiet chain reaction. When these animals came back, they did not just change the number of deer and elk on the landscape. They changed where those grazers felt safe to linger. Valleys, open meadows, and riverbanks no longer seemed like places to stand and eat without concern. As the herds moved differently, plants along the streams were given room to recover. Saplings that had once been nibbled down began to grow taller. Shrubs thickened, and young trees took hold along the water's edge. With more branches and leaves came new shelter and food, and soon birds were more plentiful, nesting and feeding in the revived vegetation. Beavers returned or expanded their work, using the growing trees to build their dams. These constructions, in turn, created ponds and slow water channels that offered homes for fish, amphibians, and insects, each arrival adding another layer of life. As the plant cover deepened and roots spread through the soil, the banks of rivers became more stable. Less earth crumbled away, and the water carved narrower, more meandering courses, held gently in place by living anchors. This type of wide-reaching effect, where changes at the top of a food web ripple through plants, animals, and even physical features like streams, is called a trophic cascade. In Yellowstone, wolves simply followed their own nature, but their presence allowed the land to rearrange itself into a more balanced, resilient pattern. It is a soft, powerful reminder that when even one missing piece of an ecosystem returns, the entire system can begin to heal in ways that are easy to overlook, yet profound. From the forests and rivers, the story moves to a quieter, smaller conversation, this time between bees and flowers. It is easy to think of blossoms as silent, colorful shapes, but some plants can respond in surprising ways to the sounds around them. In certain species, the gentle hum of a bee's wings creates tiny vibrations in the flower's petals. These movements act almost like signals, telling the plant that a pollinator is close. In response, the flower can quickly adjust the sweetness of its nectar, making it richer within minutes. The flower has no ears or nervous system like an animal, but its structure is sensitive enough to pick up specific frequencies associated with the buzzing of visiting insects. In this way, the plant and pollinator engage in a soft, wordless exchange. The bee arrives, carrying sound and motion. The flower responds by offering a more appealing meal right when it is needed. This delicate back and forth shows that even without a brain, plants can perceive aspects of their environment and react in real time, turning a garden into a place full of subtle, humming conversations. On rocky surfaces, tree trunks, and high mountain stones, another quiet form of partnership spreads in patches of green, gray, orange, or yellow, lichens. At first glance, a lichen may look like a simple crust or tuft clinging to rock or bark. In reality, it is a collaboration between at least two different kinds of organisms living so closely together that they form what appears to be a single being. One partner is a fungus, which provides structure, shelter, and the ability to hold onto surfaces. The other is usually an alga or a cyanobacterium, capable of turning sunlight into food through photosynthesis. Together, these partners create a life form that can survive in places too harsh for either of them alone. Windswept cliffs, polar tundra, dry deserts, and bare rocks. The relationship is not always gentle or equal. Sometimes the fungus exerts strong control over its photosynthetic partner, yet the result is a resilient unit that plays an important role in many ecosystems. Lichens help break down rock into soil, offer shelter and food to small creatures, and often serve as early pioneers in new or damaged environments. Wherever you see them, you are looking at cooperation made visible. Two or more lives woven into one quiet presence. Shrinking down again, the story revisits one of Earth's tiniest and toughest animals, the water bear or tardigrade. These microscopic creatures, already introduced earlier in the journey, are famous for their extraordinary endurance. They can survive deep cold, intense heat, high radiation, great pressure, and long periods without water, far beyond what most other life forms can tolerate. When conditions become too extreme, a tardigrade gradually dries out and curls into a compact, dormant form known as a ton. In this paused state, its metabolism slows to a near standstill. Years can pass, and yet the tardigrade remains ready. When water and more gentle conditions return, it rehydrates, unfolds, and resumes life as if waking from a very long sleep. Because of this resilience, some scientists think tardigrades might be among the last survivors if Earth were ever to face another major catastrophe, such as a massive impact or intense radiation event. They are not truly immortal, but they are astonishingly prepared for hardship. Far from view, clinging to moss, soil, or film-thin layers of water, these tiny beings wait patiently, a quiet symbol of life's deep determination to continue. Beneath the surface of the ground, another unusual mammal lives in networks of narrow tunnels, the naked mole rat. With its wrinkled skin and near-blind eyes, it may not seem remarkable at first glance, but its biology holds a number of surprises. naked mole rats live far longer than most rodents of similar size, sometimes reaching around 3 decades. Even more striking, their risk of death does not appear to rise sharply with age in the way it does for many other animals. These animals show a remarkable resistance to certain types of cancer and can tolerate low oxygen environments that would be dangerous to others. On a cellular level, their proteins and DNA seem better protected from damage, and their tissues remain stable and functional for many years. Naked mole rats also live in highly organized colonies with a single breeding queen, much like some insect societies. In the quiet dark of their burrows, they move through narrow passages, working, feeding, and caring for their young, unaware that far above them, researchers study their secrets in hopes of learning more about aging, resilience, and long-term health. Finally, the story turns inward once more, toward your own resting body. As you lie here, you might feel like a single, unified person, and in many ways you are, yet your body is made from an immense community of individual units, trillions of cells, each one a tiny living structure with its own tasks and rhythms. Muscle cells contract to move your limbs and support your posture. Neurons in your brain and nerves send signals, forming thoughts, memories, and sensations. Red blood cells travel quietly through vessels, delivering oxygen. Skin cells form a protective barrier and steadily renew themselves. Cells in your gut help break down food, while immune cells stand watch, ready to respond to potential threats. All of these different cell types work together continuously, coordinating without conscious direction from you. At the same time, your body is in a constant state of change. Cells die and are replaced, tissues repair and refresh. In a sense, you are always rebuilding yourself, even as your sense of you remains steady. Right now, as you rest and listen, countless microscopic processes are unfolding in perfect silence. Chemical reactions, electrical impulses, repairs, and renewals, all combining to keep you warm, breathing, and alive. You are a single being, and also a vast collaboration, a living harmony of parts that continues day and night, whether awake or asleep. As this relaxing sleep story moves onward, you can let these images drift gently to the edges of your awareness. Wolves helping forests and rivers recover, flowers responding to the songs of bees, lichens living as blended partnerships, tardigrades waiting out extremes, mole rats aging slowly underground, and your own trillions of cells working together in quiet cooperation. You do not need to hold on to any of the details. You can simply rest in the feeling that life, in all its forms, is endlessly creative and interconnected, and that you are safely part of that great, unfolding pattern. As this relaxing sleep story continues, and your body grows heavier with rest, it helps to remember that you are not a single, simple thing. You are a gathering of many parts working together in quiet harmony, a community of cells, thoughts, and tiny lives coordinating beneath your skin, your mind, your organs, and the countless invisible processes inside you form a kind of living chorus, each voice small on its own, but together creating the steady presence you feel as you. Out in the wider world, other minds reveal themselves in surprising forms. Parrots, with their bright feathers and clear voices, are often seen as playful mimics. But some of them demonstrate intelligence that rivals that of young human children. Certain species, like African gray parrots, can recognize colors, shapes, and quantities, and can tell the difference between the same and different. Famous individuals have learned to label objects, answer questions about what they see, and even appear to show frustration or preferences. In the wild, parrots use this sharp intelligence to solve problems, find food, navigate complex social relationships, and sometimes even use tools. Their brains are built differently from ours, yet evolution has led them along a parallel path toward advanced cognition. When a parrot uses human words, it is not always simple echoing. In some cases, it seems to be applying understanding to those sounds. Underneath the colorful plumage and playful antics is a mind actively working, learning, and responding to the world. From the treetops, the story moves back to the vastness of the sea. Although humans live on land and breathe air, the majority of Earth's living mass resides in the oceans, covering more than 2/3 of the planet's surface. The ocean holds an immense variety of life, from microscopic plankton to enormous whales, from delicate, glowing jellyfish to dense forests of kelp swaying in underwater currents. Coastal coral reefs, open mid-ocean waters, and deep trenches each support their own intricate communities. A single drop of seawater can contain countless tiny organisms, many of them invisible to the naked eye, but vital to global cycles of oxygen, carbon, and nutrients. Large regions of the deep ocean remain unexplored, leaving much of its life still unknown. Far below the waves, where sunlight cannot reach, creatures glow, drift, and move through landscapes sculpted by pressure and darkness. The ocean is a vast, blue wilderness, the largest and oldest habitat on Earth, beating with currents and song, quietly holding more life than all the continents combined. On land again, the story finds a forest that is also a single being. In a peaceful grove in Utah, a stand of quaking aspens appears at first to be a cluster of separate trees. Their pale trunks and trembling leaves seem ordinary, moving softly in the breeze. But beneath the soil, those trunks are all part of one enormous, interconnected root system known as pando. Each visible tree is a stem growing from the same underground organism, sharing a single genetic identity. Instead of reproducing mainly through seeds, this living network sends up new stems from its roots, replacing trunks as they age and fall. While individual trees come and go, the underlying organism may have persisted for tens of thousands of years, quietly surviving changing climates, ice ages, and storms. It is a forest and a single life at once, rooted in place and continuously renewing itself. Standing among these aspens would mean standing within one of Earth's oldest continuous beings, a living memory of deep time. At a much smaller scale, another unexpected ally appears in the form of viruses. These microscopic entities are often associated with illness, and many do cause disease. Yet, not all viral activity is harmful. Some viruses specifically attack bacteria, including types that can be dangerous to humans, helping to keep microbial communities in balance. Over millions of years, viral genetic material has also slipped into the DNA of animals, including humans, and remained there. Today, a significant portion of the human genome is made up of ancient viral sequences. Some of these once foreign genes have been repurposed by our bodies, becoming essential for processes such as development and reproduction. In this way, viruses have helped shape the course of evolution, sometimes acting less like invaders and more like unexpected contributors to life's ongoing story. They are tiny threads woven into the fabric of who we are, reminders that even things we fear can hold roles in the broader pattern of existence. Returning to the oceans, another lineage reveals its extraordinary age. Sharks, sleek and varied, are often imagined as modern hunters, but their ancestry reaches far back into Earth's history. Fossil evidence suggests that sharks, or their close relatives, have been swimming in the seas for more than 400 million years. By comparison, the first true trees appeared later, which means sharks were part of the oceans well before forests shaded the land. These animals have endured multiple mass extinctions, including events that erased huge numbers of other species, while sharks have diversified into many forms: gentle, plankton-feeding giants, swift hunters, and deep-sea dwellers. The core features of their body design have remained effective across vast stretches of time. Each smooth glide through the water carries with it the legacy of eons, as if the shape of the shark has been quietly tested and refined by hundreds of millions of years of ocean life. Finally, the story returns once more to the rainforests, where trees not only make shade and shelter, but also help build the sky above them. In these dense green expanses, countless leaves pull water from the soil and release it into the air through transpiration. This rising moisture cools, condenses, and forms clouds, which later return their water as rain. In places like the Amazon, this cycle of drawing up water and sending it skyward plays a major role in sustaining regular rainfall, not only over the forest itself, but over regions far beyond. When the rainforest is intact and healthy, it acts like a great engine of humidity, helping to create and maintain its own climate. But when large areas are cleared or burned, the amount of moisture rising into the air decreases. Over time, this can lead to fewer clouds, less rain, and a drier, more fragile landscape. If too much of the forest is lost, a tipping point may be reached where it can no longer support the same lush, rain-fed system. Seeing rainforests as active participants in shaping weather as living sources of clouds and mist reveals them not merely as scenery, but as vital organs in Earth's atmospheric body. As you drift deeper into this bedtime story, you can let these images soften and blur. Clever parrots thinking in bright feathers, oceans filled with unseen life, an ancient aspen forest that is one vast being. Helpful viruses hidden in your genes, sharks older than trees, and rainforests breathing clouds into the sky. You are part of this intricate, interwoven world, a single resting person, and also a small piece of a much larger living universe. There is nothing you need to hold on to or figure out right now. You can simply exhale, let your thoughts grow quieter, and continue to float gently towards sleep as you rest more deeply into this gentle sleep story. Imagine once again standing beneath the tall, green ceiling of a rainforest. Above you, leaves whisper softly, drawing water from the ground and releasing it into the air around you. Each tree is part of a vast system that creates its own clouds and rain, like the lungs of a continent quietly exhaling mist into the sky. Under this living canopy, life moves in countless small ways, many of them almost invisible, yet all contributing to the forest's slow, steady breath. In shallow coastal waters, a much smaller creature practices its own version of blending in. Decorator crabs are modest in size, but impressive in creativity. Instead of relying solely on natural coloring to hide, they actively gather pieces of their surroundings, fragments of algae, bits of seaweed, and living sponges, and attach them to tiny hooks on their shells. Over time, this moving collage of life grows and changes, turning the crab into a walking piece of its environment. Some of these crabs carry live sponges that continue to grow as the crab moves about. This wearable camouflage shields them from predators by making their outlines difficult to see, and sometimes by borrowing the sponge's own defenses, such as unpleasant tastes or chemicals. The result is a kind of mobile disguise that is constantly updated, a quiet collaboration between crab and the organisms it carries. In the calm, filtered light of the shallows, these small travelers move almost like pieces of the reef that have gently come to life. Shifting from the sea to the land, the scale of life expands dramatically. Insects, though small on their own, collectively dominate the planet. For every single human, there are thought to be hundreds of millions of insects alive. They live in nearly every habitat, high in rainforest canopies, deep in leaf litter, across grasslands and wetlands, along shorelines, and even in the edges of frozen tundra. Beetles alone account for an enormous fraction of all known animal species, with countless forms adapted to different niches and roles. Insects pollinate crops and wild plants, helping flowers set seed and fruits develop. They break down fallen leaves, wood, and waste, returning nutrients to the soil and keeping ecosystems cycling smoothly. Many larger animals, from birds and amphibians to mammals and fish, depend on insects as a primary food source. Their lives may be short or lengthy, solitary or deeply social, but taken together, insects shape the world in ways that are easy to overlook from a human perspective. Long before people appeared, they were here, and long after, they are likely to continue their quiet, intricate work. High in the dense rainforests of New Guinea and nearby islands, another expression of nature's imagination plays out on branches and clearings. Birds of paradise, with their dazzling feathers and unusual shapes, have evolved some of the most elaborate displays in the animal kingdom. Males of many species grow bright plumes, iridescent patches, and long, trailing feathers that they carefully present during courtship. But appearance is only one part of their performance. These birds also dance. Each species has its own style and sequence. Hopping, bowing, fanning out feathers, spreading wings, and moving in intricate rhythms. They may clear small display courts on the forest floor, or choose particular perches where light catches their colors just right. Females watch closely, deciding which performances meet their standards over many generations. This careful choice has led to ever more striking colors and dances, turning courtship into a kind of living art. In their displays, one can see how patience, selection, and time can create beauty that feels almost theatrical. Closer to the ground, and in the corners of human homes and gardens, spiders quietly spin one of nature's most remarkable materials. From their bodies, they draw out threads of silk that are astonishingly strong for their weight, stronger than steel by the same measure, and far more flexible. These silk strands can stretch and absorb energy without breaking, making them perfectly suited for catching insects, building shelters, or protecting eggs. A single spider may produce several different types of silk, each tailored to a purpose: sticky threads for capturing prey, smooth lines for structural supports, soft silk for wrapping eggs, or drag lines for safety. Some species can even spin silk underwater, or while drifting through the air. Deep within those threads, proteins are arranged in precise patterns that give the silk its resilience. Scientists study this material in hopes of mimicking its properties for use in medicine, engineering, and protective gear. For now, though, the spider simply works in patient silence, creating miracles of architecture from within its own body, strand by delicate strand. When night falls warm and still, another kind of light appears closer to the ground. Fireflies or lightning bugs communicate through tiny bursts of bioluminescent glow. Each flash pattern can carry information: which species the insect belongs to, whether it is male or female, and sometimes its readiness to mate. Males often fly through the air, pulsing their lights in specific rhythms, while females watch from grass or leaves, answering with their own timed glows. Inside the firefly's abdomen, a chemical dance between molecules like luciferin and oxygen creates this cool, efficient light with almost no heat. To human eyes, the effect is gently enchanting, a drifting, blinking conversation written across fields, forests, and backyards. For some firefly species, the glow also acts as a warning, signaling to predators that the insect tastes unpleasant or contains mild toxins. Beauty and function blend together in these lights, turning communication, defense, and romance into a shared language of small, floating stars. In the forests of Africa, South America, and other regions, some primates reveal yet another form of hidden knowledge when they are unwell. Certain monkeys and apes have been observed seeking out plants They normally ignore bitter leaves, rough textures, or bark, and stems that offer little nutritional value. They may swallow these leaves whole, letting them scrub the digestive tract, or chew specific parts of plants known to contain medicinal compounds. At times, they rub substances onto their fur or skin, as if applying an external treatment. Many of these chosen plants contain natural chemicals that fight parasites, bacteria, or fungi. Observations suggest that animals use them selectively, often only when symptoms appear, rather than as everyday foods. This behavior, sometimes called animal self-medication, hints at a form of wisdom shaped by both instinct and learning. It blurs the line between instinctive behavior and what might be thought of as traditional knowledge passed through observation and experience. Watching them, one sees that the urge to seek relief from pain or illness is not unique to humans. It is part of a broader, older pattern shared across the living world. As you float further into this gentle bedtime story, you can let these scenes drift softly through your mind. Crabs wearing living disguises, insects quietly ruling the world in vast numbers, birds of paradise dancing like living jewels, spiders weaving silk stronger than steel, fireflies speaking in flashes of light, and monkeys choosing healing plants with care. You are listening to a world that is endlessly creative, full of subtle connections and quiet intelligence. You do not need to remember each detail. You can simply let the wonder settle around you like a soft blanket, guiding you a little deeper into rest and sleep. As this gentle sleep story continues, imagine once more the green world of leaves and branches above your head. Hidden in this living pharmacy, countless plants quietly produce chemicals that can soothe, protect, or heal. And some animals have already learned how to use them, from monkeys selecting bitter leaves when they feel unwell to insects seeking out particular resins. The forest is full of subtle exchanges between bodies and botanicals, even when you cannot see it. A kind of natural medicine cabinet surrounds the creatures that live among the trees. Far from the forest floor, at the surface of the sea, another vital process unfolds in endless, shimmering numbers. Tiny organisms called phytoplankton drift in sunlit waters, each one too small to notice individually, yet together performing work that shapes the entire planet. Like plants on land, they use sunlight to power photosynthesis, taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. Despite their size, these microscopic algae produce a large share of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere, supporting the air that humans and many other animals depend on. Phytoplankton form the base of marine food webs, feeding small creatures like zooplankton and krill, which in turn nourish fish, whales, and many other ocean dwellers. Their numbers rise and fall with changes in temperature, currents, and nutrients, making them sensitive indicators of the ocean's health. They are not visible from a shoreline stroll, yet just beneath the surface, they gather in vast, drifting communities. When you breathe in and breathe out, you are sharing a slow rhythm with these floating gardens, the ocean quietly exhaling oxygen alongside the trees on land. In the shadows of forests and city parks, another kind of quiet intelligence moves on black wings. Crows, members of the corvid family, are known for their sharp minds and remarkable memory. They have been observed saving tools for later use, hiding food in carefully chosen spots, and even trading objects for rewards in experiments. When given the chance, they may choose a smaller treat now if it means a more desirable reward in the near future, showing a capacity to think ahead rather than act only on impulse. These birds have learned to use sticks to pull out food, bend bits of wire into hooks, and solve puzzles that require several steps. They can recognize individual human faces and remember both kindness and threats for years, sometimes passing that information to other crows in their group. Their brains are not large in size compared to ours, but they are densely packed and organized in ways that support complex problem solving. Watching them, one senses a thoughtful presence, a planning mind wrapped in feathers, observing the world from branch and rooftop. In darker places where eyes are less useful, other senses take the lead. Some snakes, including pit vipers, pythons, and boas, possess special openings on their faces that function like tiny heat detectors. These pit organs allow them to sense infrared radiation, the warmth given off by other animals. In low light or even complete darkness, this ability lets them perceive the outlines of warm-blooded prey as glowing shapes against a cooler background. To such a snake, the world is not just a play of visible colors, but also a landscape of temperature contrasts. This thermal sense helps them aim their strikes with remarkable accuracy, even when their eyes alone could not guide them. It is not magic, but a clever merging of physics and biology, tuned by evolution into a kind of sixth sense. Each species on Earth experiences reality through its own set of tools, and for these snakes, heat itself becomes a picture they can see. Far to the north, where much of the year is spent in cold and dim light, the Arctic tundra waits in a long, patient quiet. Frozen soil, low plants, and strong winds create a landscape that seems almost empty in winter. But when the brief summer arrives, everything changes quickly. As temperatures rise and the ground thaws, sunlight pours down for long hours each day, sometimes barely setting at all. In response, plants burst into life in a rapid, concentrated bloom. Flowers open, mosses and grasses green up, and the tundra transforms into a patchwork of color and scent. Insects emerge and begin to feed and pollinate. Birds arrive from distant migrations to nest and raise their young, and mammals make the most of the sudden abundance. All of this must happen in a narrow window of time, often just a few weeks before the cold returns. The tundra's rhythm is one of long stillness followed by intense activity, a reminder that even in the harshest climates, life finds ways to synchronize with the sun. Deeper in warmer forests, another, more unsettling story unfolds. Certain parasitic fungi have evolved a way to use insects as both shelter and transport in a life cycle that It sounds like something from a tale of dark fantasy. When spores of such a fungus land on an ant, they can germinate and begin growing inside the insect's body. Over time, the fungus spreads and eventually influences the ant's behavior, directing it to leave its usual paths, climb upward, and clamp tightly onto vegetation. Once the ant is secured in a position that favors the fungus's growth and spore dispersal, the insect dies, and the fungus continues to develop. A slender stalk emerges from the ant's body, releasing new spores into the air to begin the process again with other hosts. As unsettling as this may seem, it is also a testament to how intricately evolution can shape relationships between organisms, right down to the level of behavior. In the dim understory of the forest, beauty and strangeness exist side by side, with even the smallest beings playing their part. Back beneath the waves, on the seafloor, or along rocky slopes, sea cucumbers lie quietly, looking like soft, unassuming shapes on the sand. Yet they possess one of the more unusual abilities in the animal world. They can dramatically change the firmness of their bodies. By adjusting the arrangement and connections of proteins in their tissues, a sea cucumber can shift from relatively firm and supportive to almost liquid, flowing into narrow spaces between rocks, or curling tightly for protection. When danger approaches, some species use an even more surprising defense. They may expel portions of their internal organs, distracting or entangling a predator with these soft structures. Over time, they regenerate what they have lost, rebuilding themselves from within. What appears at first to be a simple, sluggish creature is in fact a master of flexibility and renewal, able to loosen and reknit its own form as conditions demand. As you continue listening, you can allow all of these images to soften into a gentle, drifting tapestry. Invisible ocean algae filling the air with oxygen, clever crows planning ahead, snakes seeing warmth in the dark, tundra bursting briefly into color, fungi guiding ants like tiny puppeteers, and sea cucumbers melting and reforming their bodies. Each story is a reminder that Earth is full of quiet miracles, happening whether or not anyone is there to see them. You do not need to hold all these details in your mind. You can simply let them become a soft background of wonder as you breathe, relax, and slip a little further towards sleep. As you continue to drift into this relaxing sleep story, the sea remains a place of slow, patient wonders. Among its quieter residents is the sea cucumber, a creature that moves gently across the ocean floor with an ability that seems almost like something from a dream. Instead of relying on bones and rigid muscles, it can change the firmness of its body at will. By adjusting the structure of its connective tissues, it shifts from relatively firm to almost fluid, slipping into narrow cracks or softening to avoid damage, then returning to solidity when needed. In the calm rhythm of the tides, it glides and reshapes itself, as if its body were water temporarily holding the form of an animal. Far to the south, beneath thick layers of ice, another unusual life form has found a way to endure the cold in a very different manner. in the frigid waters of the Antarctic, ice fish move slowly through temperatures that would freeze most other vertebrates. Their blood contains special antifreeze proteins that attach to tiny ice crystals and prevent them from growing, acting as a microscopic shield against freezing. These fish are also remarkable for what they lack. They have no red blood cells and no hemoglobin, giving their blood a pale, almost translucent appearance. Instead of relying on red cells to carry oxygen, they allow oxygen to dissolve directly into their blood plasma, circulating it throughout their bodies at a measured pace. In the hush beneath the ice, their strange physiology is a quiet testament to life's ability to adapt to even the harshest environments. Back on land, another extraordinary feat of natural engineering rises from the soil. Termite mounds, which can tower several meters above ground, may look from a distance like simple piles of earth. Inside, however, lies a complex, multi-chambered city built by countless small insects working together. Tunnels, galleries, and rooms weave through the structure, housing workers, soldiers, and the reproductive individuals that sustain the colony. One of the most impressive features of these mounds is their built-in climate control through a network of vents and shafts. Termites create a system that allows warm air to rise and escape, while cooler air is drawn in from lower openings. This passive ventilation helps maintain a relatively stable temperature and humidity inside, even when conditions outside swing from hot to cold. Without written plans or conscious design, the colony collectively builds and maintains this environment, adjusting and repairing as needed. It is a form of natural architecture born from instinct and cooperation, as efficient and elegant as any human-designed cooling system in the drier landscapes of North America. A small, armored reptile carries a defense strategy that sounds like a folktale, but is entirely real. The horned lizard, with its spiky body and earth-toned colors, can sometimes deter predators in a dramatic way by squirting a thin stream of blood from the corners of its eyes. When seriously threatened, especially by certain mammalian hunters, it increases blood pressure in vessels near the eyes until they briefly rupture, sending out a sudden, surprising spray. This blood is often laced with chemicals that taste unpleasant to would-be attackers, causing them to hesitate or retreat. The lizard then has a precious moment to escape. The tiny vessels heal quickly, and the animal goes on with its quiet life, feeding and basking among rocks and scrub. Though this response may seem extreme, it is just one of many inventive solutions evolution has produced to help small creatures survive in a world full of larger threats. Looking back through deep time, the story of life itself leads down into the dark, high-pressure world of the early oceans. Long before forests, fish, or familiar animals appeared, some of the first living organisms may have arisen around hydrothermal vents on the seafloor. These vents release hot, mineral-rich fluids into the cold surrounding water, creating steep chemical gradients. Instead of using sunlight, early microbes likely tapped into these chemical differences for energy, a process known as chemosynthesis. Even today, hydrothermal vent communities thrive without any direct light from the sun. Tube worms, specialized clams, and heat-loving bacteria cluster around the warm outflows, forming ecosystems that depend entirely on chemical energy from within the earth. Some scientists think that similar environments on other worlds with subsurface oceans, like certain icy moons, might also be capable of supporting life. If that is true, then the first sparks of biology elsewhere in the universe could resemble those early, unseen beginnings on our own planet, tiny cells drawing life from stone and water in the darkness. Returning to shallower, sunlit waters, another quietly remarkable creature moves along the reef. A starfish, or sea star, glides slowly over rocks and sand, using hundreds of tiny tube feet on its underside. Its body, arranged in arms radiating from a central disc, is both simple and sophisticated. If a predator manages to tear off one of its arms, the starfish is not permanently harmed. Over time, it can grow a new one in its place. In some species, if part of the central disc remains attached, even a single lost arm can regenerate into an entirely new individual. This regenerative power comes from specialized cells and a nervous system that is spread throughout the body rather than concentrated in a single brain. The starfish senses and responds in a distributed way, quietly coordinating movement and healing. Scientists study these animals to better understand how tissues repair and regrow, hoping that the lessons learned might one day aid in improving human healing. On the reef, though, the starfish simply continues its slow journey, offering a gentle reminder that loss does not always mean an ending. Sometimes it is followed by renewal. On the riverbanks and in the shaded streams of eastern Australia, another of Earth's unusual mammals goes about its twilight routines. The platypus, with its soft fur, flat tail, webbed feet, and bill shaped like that of a duck, looks almost as if it were assembled from parts of several different animals. Yet, it is perfectly adapted to its niche. Unlike most mammals, the platypus lays eggs rather than giving birth to live young. After the eggs hatch, the mother feeds her offspring with milk that seeps through specialized areas of her skin. As she has no distinct nipples, the platypus belongs to a small group known as monotremes, mammals that retain this egg-laying trait. In addition to its unusual method of reproduction, the platypus also has the ability to detect faint electrical signals produced by the muscles and nerves of its prey, helping it locate food while swimming with its eyes closed. In the quiet of its watery world, this animal carries traits that seem to bridge different branches of the evolutionary tree, part reptile-like in reproduction, part mammal in warm-blooded care, yet wholly its own distinct lineage. As you listen to these stories of icefish with antifreeze blood, termites building ventilated towers, lizards defending themselves with sudden streams of red, ancient microbes thriving in the dark, starfish rebuilding lost limbs, and egg-laying mammals nursing their young, you can let the details blur and soften at the edges. What remains is a feeling that life on Earth is endlessly inventive, meeting every challenge with new shapes, behaviors, and quiet strategies. You do not need to remember each example. You can simply rest in the comfort that you live on a world where adaptation, resilience, and renewal are woven into every corner of the living tapestry, including your own gentle breath as you drift deeper toward sleep. As this gentle sleep story continues, the platypus remains paddling softly through cool Australian streams, carrying its quiet collection of unusual traits. Unlike most mammals, the mother does not have nipples. Instead, milk is released through special pores in the skin along her underside, where it gathers in the fur and shallow grooves. Her tiny young, blind and delicate, lap the milk directly from her skin, nourished by a system that seems almost improvised, yet has worked for countless generations. The males add another twist. Each hind leg bears a small venomous spur, a reminder that even this softly furred animal holds hidden defenses. When they hunt underwater, platypuses close their eyes, ears, and nostrils, relying on sensitive electroreceptors in their bills to detect faint electrical signals from the muscles of insects and small aquatic creatures. Everything about them, egg-laying, milk without nipples, venom, and electric senses, feels like a bundle of contradictions. And yet together they form a perfectly coherent life, a living echo from an ancient branch of the mammal family tree. When night spreads over fields, forests, and rivers, another group of animals takes to the sky, navigating not by sight alone, but by sound. Many bats use echolocation to move and hunt in the dark. They emit rapid, high-frequency calls, too high for most human ears to hear, that bounce off leaves, branches, insects, and other objects around them. By listening carefully to the returning echoes, bats create an internal map of their surroundings, sensing distances, sizes, and even textures. With this acoustic picture, a bat can weave through dense forests, slip between branches, or swoop through narrow openings with astonishing precision. Some species can detect and catch a tiny insect on the wing using only these echoes, all while flying swiftly through the night. Not all bats rely on echolocation, but those that do transform darkness into a rich, detailed landscape of sound. Where human eyes see only blackness, bats hear shape and space, turning silence into a world filled with rhythm, pattern, and motion. Back on the ground, in sunlit wetlands of the southeastern United States, a quiet green predator waits with a very different kind of perception. The Venus flytrap, which appeared earlier in this story, has leaves shaped like small, open jaws lined with delicate trigger hairs. Each hair acts as a tiny motion sensor. If a raindrop or bit of dust brushes one hair briefly, nothing happens. But if an insect or spider touches the hairs twice in quick succession, or activates two different hairs within a short window, the plant responds. In a fraction of a second, the leaf snaps shut, trapping the unlucky visitor inside. This brief delay, a kind of built-in counting system, helps the flytrap distinguish true prey from random disturbances. After closing, the plant forms a seal and begins releasing digestive enzymes, slowly breaking down the captured insect over several days. When digestion is complete, the trap reopens, ready again. The Venus flytrap does not think as an animal does, yet it senses, measures, and reacts with remarkable precision, turning touch and timing into action. Far to the south, on rocky coasts rimmed with ice and snow, courtship takes a humble yet touching form. Many penguin species, such as Adelie and Gentoo penguins, begin their pair bonds with a simple offering, a stone. As breeding season approaches, a male searches carefully among the gravel for a smooth, well-shaped pebble. When he finds one he deems suitable, he presents it to a potential mate with a small bow or careful gesture. If the female accepts the pebble, she adds it to the beginnings of a nest, and together they continue to gather more stones. These raised nests help keep the eggs above melting snow and damp ground, offering warmth and protection in a challenging environment. The best stones are treasured, and sometimes neighboring birds quietly steal pebbles from each other's nests, adding a bit of drama to the otherwise simple ritual. Yet at its heart, this behavior is a gentle symbol, a shared effort to build a safe space, one small stone at a time, in a cold and windy world. High above oceans and mountain ranges, some birds must cross such long distances that there is nowhere to land for days or weeks at a stretch. Species like the frigate bird and the alpine swift spend extended periods on the wing, gliding on air currents and circling far above the sea. To survive such journeys, they have evolved a way to rest without fully stopping. Their brains can enter a state called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep, where one hemisphere rests while the other remains alert enough to manage flight and avoid hazards. During these moments, one eye may close while the other stays open, keeping watch on the sky and the world below. It is not the deep, complete sleep of a body lying safely on the ground, but it is enough to restore some of what they need while they continue their travels. In this way, rest and motion coexist. The bird glides, half asleep and half awake, carried by winds over open water, its dreams and awareness woven into the same long, gentle arc across the sky. Turning inward again, the story reaches the center of human thought and feeling, the brain. Inside your skull lies a soft, complex organ made of about 86 billion neurons, each cell branching into delicate fibers that connect with thousands of others. Communication between these cells happens through tiny electrical impulses, small shifts of charged particles moving across membranes. These signals travel along axons and jump across synapses, where they trigger chemical messengers that pass the signal on. From these countless sparks and pulses, patterns emerge. They combine to form sensations, images, words, memories, and emotions. Even when you are sleeping, your brain does not fall silent. It moves through slow waves and gentle rhythms, consolidating memories and maintaining the body's internal balance. You are not powered by metal wires or mechanical parts, but by living currents flowing through cells, streams of charged ions, and chemical signals that together give rise to awareness. In this way, your thoughts are both ethereal and physical, as real as the cells that carry them, and as intangible as the ideas they create. Back beneath the waves, another master of disguise moves across sandy bottoms and coral gardens. Cuttlefish, relatives of squid and octopuses, have soft bodies and large, curious eyes. What makes them especially remarkable is their skin, which is packed with layers of specialized cells that control color, brightness, and even texture. Within moments, a cuttlefish can shift from one pattern to another, mottled browns to match rocks, shimmering stripes to signal to other cuttlefish, or smooth, pale tones to blend with open sand. Some can even raise small bumps or ridges on their skin, changing not only how they look, but also how they feel to the touch, all to better match their surroundings. These changes happen so quickly that a cuttlefish can appear to vanish into the background almost as soon as it decides to hold still. Their color displays may serve for camouflage, communication, or both. Watching them is like watching a living painting that constantly rewrites itself, brushstroke by brushstroke, guided by a quiet intelligence beneath the surface. As you rest here, with eyes closed or half closed, you can let all of these scenes fade into a soft, comforting blur. Platypuses nursing without nipples and sensing electricity underwater, bats hearing the shape of the night, plants that count touches before they move, penguins offering pebbles as gifts, birds that sleep while they fly, your own brain flickering gently with tiny sparks, and cuttlefish melting into the colors and textures around them. You do not need to hold any of it tightly. You can simply allow the feeling of wonder to remain like a distant glow, while your body becomes heavier, your breath slows, and you drift a little deeper into quiet, peaceful sleep. Now, as this sleep story comes to its soft close, let all of these images and facts settle like dust in a shaft of late afternoon light. Together, we have wandered through oceans and coral gardens, across deserts and savannas, over mountain ridges, and into forests rich with hidden conversations. We have paused beside glowing jellyfish and singing whales, listened to the chemical whispers of plants and the silent calculations of leaves, and watched animals navigate by starlight and unseen forces. Beneath all of it has been one gentle theme. Life is extraordinary because it continues. It bends instead of breaking, shifts instead of stopping, and finds new forms where old ones cannot remain. Somewhere right now, a coral colony is letting clouds of eggs and sperm drift into the dark water, trusting the currents to carry its future. Far above the sea, a bird may be gliding in a half-sleep, one side of its brain resting, while the other keeps watch. In a quiet garden, a flower is subtly changing its nectar as it feels the faint vibration of a visiting bee. In soil, tiny worms and roots are reshaping the earth grain by grain, and inside your own chest, your heart continues its steady rhythm, cells renew, and your breath moves softly in and out. You are not separate from these scenes. You are made of the same stardust, water, and woven time as every creature you have heard about tonight. Your thoughts are part of Earth's unfolding story. Your resting body is another small proof that life, given a chance, chooses to continue. So, wherever you are lying in bed, eyes half closed, or already floating toward dreams, allow yourself to feel held by this wider living world. Let your breath slow just a little. Feel the weight of your body supported by the surface beneath you. If thoughts arise, you can acknowledge them gently and let them drift away like leaves on a quiet stream. The journey does not end here. It simply pauses in this calm place, waiting for the next spark of curiosity when you wake. For now, nothing is required of you. The planet will go on spinning, tides will rise and fall, and life will keep quietly adapting while you rest. Sleep well. Let yourself sink into softness, into stillness, into the deep, comforting knowledge that you are part of something resilient and remarkable. Thank you for drifting through this nighttime story. Whenever you need to return to these gentle facts, to this sense of wonder, or simply to a safe place to fall asleep, you are always welcome back.